Hi guys, here I'm trying to show you the process here of trying to work with the ceiling tile profile boards going into the backdrop behind this bridge, which is in turn the top of the helix and behind the mine industry. The mine is not showing right now. It's about where that glue bottle is poked up by this vertical stick. And I'm trying to show you the problem, the challenge, of making a few inches look like something deeper, as this river is supposed to come between the rocks about in the center of the image right now through the bridge that's covered up with the plastic. The blue plastic is about halfway across the bridge, and it will come down. There's two bridges crossing. There's a temporary black foreground bridge underneath that plastic right now, which will be replaced by a trestle, and it's going to come down beside the helix. Underneath the styrofoam there will be a bridge there, and that's the bridge, and it'll be coming out to the water where you see the dip in the fascia there. But the problem we have here that I'm working on is carefully casting with rock molds and probably carving, so I don't lose the effect of the 3 or 4 layers, whatever we got there, of profile boards, as if rocks are overlapping and the water's coming between. As you see a little bit of little triangle of blue in the middle there, imagine that being colored the color of the water and it coming through from the left behind the center, and then as if it passed in the foreground in front of that left-hand piece of rock, between the promontories of rock that are on the right and that left-hand side and under the bridge. So I'm carefully, normally what you do is when you're making rocks like this, in order to make it geologically believable on the edge of a mountain, you don't start at the bottom and go up. You start at the top and go down so that the new rock mold overlaps from below and you get a ledge along the top that I haven't added my foliage. It can, it's believable and it works that way, that at the bottom the mountain is thicker or more towards you when you're viewing than at the top because it's sloping away from you. If you do the opposite, you've got this ugly, an unbelievable overhang which rarely occurs in nature. So you can see right now this promontory on the right is sort of a glob hanging over, not too far back behind the track, and I have to try, I'll be putting a piece overlapping in front of it to make it look like it's receding more, and what's in the foreground is lower down, the bottom of the mountain closer. So normally you just go from the top down and work your way across, and it works reasonably well, and then you fill in the gaps with a little plaster and the imagination and a knife and paint and foliage and things. Here I'm trying to get a lateral foreground background, and I started to realize when I was putting that piece of molding on that mold, rock mold on there in the middle, that if I just keep going across here and covering up, I'll cover up all my profile boards and it'll just look like one rock wall and I'll lose my sense of depth. So I went back and I took an Olfa knife, see lying down in the foreground there, and I've been trying to taper the left-hand side so it slopes into the backdrop from the left to the right. I did a steeper version of that on the right, and we get a bit of a V. I'm going to probably change this. My plan is to plaster the rough, soft, beige-looking thickness of the profile boards so it turns white with plaster and it's hard for paint and everything else after I'm happy with the shape of it. And then use a casting or little bits of a casting. You don't have to use a whole casting. To make the 3 layers looked distinct and still as believable rock, because right now it just looks like ceiling tile, those flat 3 layers you see. So that's the problem. I think what I'm going to have to do is do something believable on the back layer, just as we did from top to bottom going on vertical pieces. I'm going to do from the back to foreground. So I'm going to do that back piece, which I wish I had this on a tripod so I could point right now. Try my paintbrush here. The one that goes like this. Probably do it first with a bit of rock mold or just casting and carving. Then this one, and then something that covers, oh, and then this one on the right, and then something that covers just this. Background to foreground, trying to maintain this sense of depth and the water, as if the water is coming around this left-hand side of rock, in front of the rocks that are here, under my bridge, and away we go. That's the hope. But what would this hobby be without a little imagination and dreaming? Signing out, Graham Stokes.